Hi guys, and welcome back to this week's video. I hope you guys are doing fine. In this video we are making this super cute crochet top for summer. Guys, we know summer is around the corner. This is super simple to make. I did actually go for the eye neck, but you can actually wear this the other way around. So basically with the front being at the back and then the back being at the front. You can also wear this whatever way you want to wear it. You can see that it goes all the way to the side. It's cropped on one side and then the other side is basically all the way down. You can wear this with a skirt, you can wear this with a leggings, you can wear this with a shorts, whatever you want to wear this with. I used the single crochet for this, but it's super simple. You will be able to just work this up even if you are a beginner. So let's get right into it. I will leave all the materials used down below in the description and also in the comments, so check that out. Let's get right into the video. So I am using a medium weight yarn. This is what I use for most of my crochet projects. And I'm also using a 4mm. You guys can see a 5 on here, but I did switch later on to a 4mm. So I will, again, like I said, I will leave all the details down below just in case you want to go back and cross check that. So the first measurements we will be needing is going to be the length, and for length I mean the short side of the top. So basically from your shoulders up until where you want the shortest version of your top to stop. For my case, I ended up chaining a total of 50, but this obviously depends on your length preference. So you're just going to make a slip knot and chain until you have the length, your preferred length. After your chain, you are going to go ahead and chain an extra one just so you have a turning chain, and right into the second chain from the crochet hook you are going to insert a single crochet. From there on, you're going to go into the next stitch with one single crochet and into the next stitch with one single crochet. And this is honestly what you're going to do for your first row. So basically one single crochet into every stitch until you get to the very end of the row. You want to make sure that you are not inserting more than one single crochet in any chain, but at the same time you're not skipping any chain. You want to keep the same amount of chains you had at the very beginning until you get to the very end of the row. And at the end of the row, you should have something like this. You still want to make sure you're going back into that last chain with your last single crochet stitch. For the next row, you're going to chain one and turn, and right into the very first stitch, you are going to go in the back loop with a single crochet. So usually you have two loops on each stitch, but you want to make sure that you're going into the back loop like you see me doing. I'm going to go ahead and insert one single crochet into every stitch into the back loop until I get to the very end of the row. Again, we are not increasing or decreasing, which means you still want to keep the same amount of stitches that you had at the previous row. So at the end of this row, I should still have a total of 50 single crochet stitches. And that should leave you with something like this. So we are going to repeat this for a total of 2 more rows. So chain one and turn, and right into the very first single crochet you want to go into the back loop with one single crochet, and you are going to repeat one single crochet until you get to the end of the row, and that completes row 3, and you're going to do that for this row 4, the same exact step for row 4. Do that and I'll show you guys what the next step is. And your row 4 should look like this. We are going to start the next row, which is going to be row 5, with a chain and turn. And right into the very first stitch, you are going to insert again a single crochet in the back loop. So you want to keep that in mind for the entire pattern. You're going into the back loop, and then you're going to go ahead and go into that same stitch with an additional single crochet. So that means we just did a first increase. You can grab a stitch marker if you're a beginner to mark your very first stitch, but if you don't have to, you don't need to. If you don't need to, then you don't have to. I don't know. Guys, from there on, you're going to repeat one single crochet from into each stitch like we did from the previous rows, and you're going to do that until you get to the very end of this row. I want to just make sure you guys know that the increasing will be done just on one side of the panel and not on both sides, so which means when you get to the end of row 5, you are just going to insert one single crochet into your last stitch and not two single crochets. And right here, I am coming back to the end of row 6 to the stitch marker. I'm going to insert one single crochet into the last 2 stitches. So we are not increasing on every row. I wanted to let that know as well. You're just increasing on even numbers. So I did increase on odd numbers, sorry. I increased on row 5, which means I'm not increasing on row 6, and I will be increasing on row 7. So into that very first stitch, I am going to insert 2 single crochet stitches, which is going to be my second increase, and I'm going to mark that stitch again with a stitch marker, but again, like I said, you don't have to do that. And after that, I'm just going to repeat one single crochet until I get to the end of the row. Again, just to repeat, you're not increasing on the opposite side of the row, you're only increasing on this side, but then also you're also increasing only when you're working on odd numbers. So basically 5, 7, 9, 11. So when you're working on those rows, then you're going to increase on one side. But when you're working on even numbers like row 6, row 8, row 10, you are not increasing at all. You're just going to insert one single crochet until you get to the end of the row. And right here, I'm coming back to the end of the row, which is, I think, in this case, row 8. And I'm going to just insert one single crochet into every stitch. Take off the stitch marker if you have to, and just go back into that very last stitch. You want to make sure that you're going into that stitch with one single crochet. So right there, you guys are seeing I'm just going to chain 1 and turn. And because this is now row 9, I will be doing my third increase. So right into that very first stitch, I am going to insert 2 single crochets, and then right after, just go into the remaining stitches with one single crochet each until I get to the very end of the row. And that is honestly what you're going to repeat until you have the half of your bust measurement. I want you guys to keep in mind that this is a back loop. We're literally going into the back loop, which means this pattern is actually super stretchy. So you're going to just divide your bust measurement, whatever number that is, by 2, and you're going to repeat this pattern by doing the same increase pattern until you have the half of that measurement. So right now you can see that this is what mine looks like. All I did is just repeated the previous row, the increase and then the non-increase row until I have the half of my bust measurement. So do that and I'll show you guys what it looks like in the next clip. And this is what mine looks like. For reference, I did a total of 60 rows in total, and also just in case, mine I think is about size medium. So if you want to make the same size, I did a total of 60 rows. So right there, you're just going to end off, make sure you have your 60 rows or whatever rows. If you're making a size smaller, obviously you're going to need less, but that's the reason why I always say use your bust measurement, because if you use measurement, you can actually get this to fit and you don't have to depend on the amount of rows that I'm mentioning in my videos, because I don't make this for different sizes, which means I don't know what size, I don't know the measurement or the amount of rows you would need for each size. That's why I explained this in measurement base. But if you want to make my own size, I did a total of 60 rows of single crochet stitches. And guys, for the back panel, we are doing something similar. So you're going to chain the same amount of chain. For me, I chained my 50, and then I'm going to work the first 4 rows of single crochet stitches in the back loop. That's what we did for the front panel, and that's the same exact thing we're doing for the back panel. Right after my 4 rows of single crochet stitches in the back loop, I am going to start increasing just the same exact thing we did for the front panel. You're going to start increasing, but this time around I am going to increase for a total of 10 rows. So I'm going to do that for a total of 10 rows, which will leave me with a total of 14 rows, including the 4 rows I just did with no increasing or decreasing. And that leaves me with this. So right there I have a total of 14 rows, 4 rows of single crochet, basic single crochet, and additional 10 rows of increasing. Again, I wasn't increasing every stitch, I was only increasing on odd numbers. So the next row that I have is row 15, which is an odd number. So I'm going to chain 1, and right into that very first single crochet I am going to insert 2 single crochets because I'm increasing on the odd number rows. So from there on, I'm going to just insert 1 single crochet into the next 35 stitches. So remember we did increase for 5 rows, that leaves us with an additional 5. So plus the 50 chains that I had initially, that leaves me with a total of 55 single crochet stitches. So I'm going to just go ahead and insert 1 single crochet. You can count your stitches if you want to, I'm going to go ahead and insert one single crochet into the next 35 stitches. We are not going all the way up because again, that's what the pattern is made up of from the back panel. That also depends on how deep you want that part to be. If you want to go for a low back, then you can just do less, so maybe like 20 or 25. But if you want to go for the same look, I would suggest you go ahead and add 10 inches to that. So into the next 35 stitches, which you guys see I'm doing there, I'm just going to insert one single crochet until I get to that 35th stitch. And guys, this is what mine looks like. Again, this is basically just the opening at the back. So if you want it to be lower, you're going to do less. If you want it to be higher, you're just going to go up with more stitches. From there on, I like to go into that last stitch into both loops instead of just one loop, because then it makes it solid. And you're going to chain one and just go back down into each stitch with one single crochet. So because this is going to be an odd row for me, I'm just going to go ahead and repeat one single crochet until I get to the very end. So I'm not increasing, but when I'm coming up on the next row, I am going to increase. So the only difference between this back and the front panel is just that now we have a shorter panel that we're working on, because the upper side of this is going to be left. It's going to remain open like that. So you're just going to end off your row right where you just turned, and that is what you're going to repeat. So get all the way down, chain one, do your increase, and make sure you work your way up all the way up, but you're not going fully to the very top again, because we're leaving that space open. And guys, this leaves us with something like this. So for you to know exactly how much you need to do is, in my case, I did a total of 60 rows for the back panel, and the first half of this panel, before we did cut the back neck, we did a total of 14, right? So all I did was subtracted 14 on both sides, because we're going to do the exact same step that we just did on the opposite side. So 14 plus 14 will leave you 28. So you're going to subtract 28 from the amount of rows you did for the front panel. So 28 subtracted minus 60 will leave you with 32. So I ended up doing 32 rows for this half of the panel before I'm going to start the next 14 rows of the panel. And you still want to do the increase pattern, guys, because the increasing is being done on the same way, just the same way you did for the front panel. So you still want to continue to do your increase pattern until you have your 32 rows complete. Again, mine is 32, but if you're doing a size smaller, you're basically going to subtract 14. You're going to add 14 plus 14, because we already have the first 14 stitches, but we need 14 on the opposite side. So you're going to add 14 plus 14, 28, and you're going to subtract 28 from the full amount of rows you had for your back panel. So if you made a size smaller and you had maybe like 15, you're going to subtract 28 from 15, and that number is what you're going to repeat with this second half of the panel. So you're going to just repeat this with the increasing, still doing the increasing on each odd row. So basically 15, 17, 19, guys. I don't know if you understand, but that's what I'm going to repeat until I get to the end. So you should have something like this. I did put it across the front panel so you guys can see exactly what it looks like. So now we are going to repeat the opposite step. So in my case, all I did was, again, you guys did see that when I wanted to work the row, I did a stitch into the next 35 stitches, and I had a total of 55 stitches, which means I only have 20 stitches that I did skip. So you're now going to balance off that by chaining 20, and this 20 is again going to just get back to the amount of rows you had at the very beginning, or just fill that up. Right there, you can see that that's what 20 chains actually just leaves your work looking like. So you can also go ahead and cross check if it actually fits the opposite side, and then you can chain one. I usually just chain one, so you can use that chain one as a turning chain, and you're going to go back into the chain with a single crochet stitch and repeat one single crochet into the next 20 chains. And of course, after the chain, you're going to get into the body of the panel with your single crochet into the back loop. And this is where you're going to repeat until you get to the very end of the row. And guys, you're going to just repeat this for a total of 10 rows, for a total of 14 rows. So you're increasing until the end of the row. You want to make sure at the end of the back panel, you still have a total of 60 rows. In my case, I want to make sure I have a total of 60 because that's the same amount I had for the front panel. So whatever amount you had for the back panel, for the front panel, so you want to make sure that you have the same amount for the back panel. So you're going to just chain one, continue, still doing your increasing if you have to go into that very first stitch with your two single crochet stitches, and you're going to just continue to do that until you have the full amount of rows that you had for the front panel. And you should have something like this, guys. This pattern is super easy. Again, like I said, the numbers are going to be different depending on the size you're making, but if you have any questions, you can leave it down below in the comment and I'll make time to answer your questions. So now you're going to grab your opposite panel and we are going to attach that to the back panel. Again, we already have a strap, so that 14 stitches that we did at the very beginning is actually the strap. So you're now going to go into that stitch and attach that with a single crochet. You can use a slip stitch or a needle for this, but you're just going to take your time and go into each and every stitch on both sides of the panels, and you're going to single crochet, carefully single crochet these two together to have the first strap attached. My name is Carrie, I'm so very fly, oh my, it's a little bit scary. Boys wanna marry, looking in my dairy, and you can stare at it, if you touch it, I'm a berry. Pretty as a picture, sweeter than a swisher, mad cause I'm cuter than... And guys, this is what you should have after the first attachment. You are now going to repeat the same exact step with the opposite strap. You're going to reattach your yarn on the side and single crochet or even use a needle. Whatever method that works for you, you're going to do that with the opposite strap as well. So now that you have the straps attached, you are going to decide how wide you want the armpit area to be. This is basically where your arm is going to go into. So right there you guys can just see I'm just eye marking. I did not use my measurement for this because I know the stitch is very stretchy, so I can just decide to do that. But if you want to be specific, I'll suggest to use your measurement tape and mark that area. So basically you're now going to attach your yarn into that marked area and make a secure knot. And from there on you are going to single crochet, carefully single crochet your stitches together until you get to the very end. So I like to just chain one, and I'm going to carefully go into that very first stitch on both sides of the panel, and I'm going to just single crochet those two stitches until I get to the very end of that side. And you should have something like this when one side is complete and sealed. You want to make sure that the seam you're making at the side does align with the seam at the very top, because then that's going to be the wrong side of your panel. So when you flip everything to the opposite side, you're going to have the right side. You are now going to do the same exact step on the opposite side of the panel. So you want to mark, you guys can see that I did use that stitch gap there as a what's the word, as a guide. I did use that as a guide to know exactly where I want my armpit hole to be. So I'm just going to reattach my yarn right there, and I'm going to go ahead and single crochet all the way down to the very end. So this is where we did the increasing, which means it's longer than the opposite side. So you still want to make sure that you go right into that stitch, every single stitch on both sides of the panel, until you get to the very end. And that honestly leaves us with this super cute summer top. You can make this in so many different colors. I think the next time I make this, I'm going to use a 3 or 4 different colors together. I think it would look so cute. This is what the final look is. Again, you can see that it's super stretchy. So use your measurement tape if you have to make sure that you have the best fitting. This is what it looks like. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like it, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and I will see you guys in my next video.